They say rivers never die, that they outlast the kingdoms they feed, the cities they carve, the people who worship their banks. But the Euphrates, the river that birthed civilization, is dying. Once, it roared through the deserts of the Middle East like a silver serpent, coiling between mountains and plains, feeding millions, shaping the destiny of empires. Today, in many stretches, it is little more than a dusty scar on the land. According to Iraq's Ministry of Water Resources, water levels in key sections have dropped by more than 5 meters since 2020. Entire docks now dangle in the air, their piers never touching water. Fishing boats lie abandoned in mud, their hulls cracked under the relentless sun. In some sections, the Euphrates hovers just above dead level, the threshold where it can no longer sustain any flow at all. And as the waters retreat, the river is giving up its secrets. In 2022, near the town of Kamune in Iraq's Kurdistan region, receding waters revealed a 3,400-year-old Bronze Age palace, part of the ancient Mitanni Empire. Archaeologists from the University of Tübingen documented massive walls, cuneiform tablets, and murals still bearing traces of red and blue pigment. Near Habaniya, farmers discovered clay jars sealed since the Babylonian era. In Syria, drought exposed the foundations of villages abandoned centuries ago. Cooking pots still in place, grinding stones worn smooth by generations of use. For archaeologists, this is a rare opportunity to study sites normally submerged beneath reservoirs and river channels. For the millions who live along its banks, it is a nightmare they cannot wake from. The Euphrates is more than a river. It is the timeline of humanity itself. It begins in the mountains of eastern Turkey, fed by snowmelt and rains. From there it travels 2,800 kilometers through Turkey, into Syria, across Iraq, until it joins with the Tigris to form the Shatt al-Arab, spilling finally into the Persian Gulf. Between these two rivers, the Tigris and the Euphrates, lies Mesopotamia, the Fertile Crescent, the land between the rivers. Here, over 6,000 years ago, the Sumerians built the first great cities. Uruk, Lagash. Here, the wheel was invented. Writing was born. Kings ruled by laws etched into clay tablets. Babylon rose on the banks of the Euphrates, a city of soaring ziggurats and, according to ancient accounts, hanging gardens that may have been one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. The Euphrates gave Babylon its glory. The irrigation channels carved from it made the desert bloom. The river carried traders, soldiers, and emissaries from far-off lands, and it shaped faith itself. In the book of Genesis, it is named as one of the 4 rivers flowing from Eden. In the Epic of Gilgamesh, its waters bear witness to mankind's oldest recorded quest for immortality. Control of the Euphrates was power. Lose it and your kingdom would crumble. For millennia, the river was under the control of a single power at a time. Sumer, Akkad, Babylon, Persia, Rome, the Caliphates, the Ottomans. But when the Ottoman Empire collapsed after World War I, the river's fate changed. New borders drawn by colonial powers split the Euphrates among 3 nations. It became an international resource and an international bargaining chip. Its headwaters lie in Turkey, which controls roughly 90% of the river's flow. From there, it passes through Syria and finally into Iraq. Downstream nations depend entirely on the policies and the political will of those upstream. In 1946, Turkey and Iraq signed a treaty on its use. It promised cooperation, data sharing, and fair water allocation. On paper, it was a step toward peace. But by the 1960s, Turkey had different ambitions. They launched the Southeastern Anatolia Project, known by its Turkish acronym GAP, 22 dams and 19 hydroelectric plants designed to harness the Euphrates and its sister, the Tigris. The crown jewel was the Ataturk Dam, completed in 1990, one of the largest in the world, with a reservoir capable of holding 48.7 billion cubic meters of water. Syria followed suit, building the Topkapı Dam in 1973, creating Lake Assad, Syria's largest body of water. To both nations, this was progress, energy independence, irrigation for millions of acres, and the promise of prosperity. To Iraq, it was an existential threat. By the mid-1970s, according to Iraqi government reports, Iraq's water supply from the Euphrates had dropped by nearly 40%. Tensions flared. Threats were made. In 1975, Iraq massed troops along the Syrian border. The world held its breath. It took diplomatic intervention from Saudi Arabia and the Soviet Union to pull the region back from war. Temporary agreements were made. Minimum flows were promised. But treaties without enforcement mechanisms are difficult to uphold, a problem that persists to this day. Fast forward to the present. The Euphrates is shrinking faster than at any time in recorded history. According to NASA's satellite data from the GRACE mission, the Tigris-Euphrates basin lost approximately 144 cubic kilometers of fresh water between 2003 and 2013, one of the fastest rates of groundwater depletion on Earth. The causes are multiple and compounding. Rainfall across the basin has declined significantly over the past 2 decades. Snow in the Turkish mountains, the river's primary source, melts earlier each year due to rising temperatures. Summers grow longer and hotter. Evaporation claims millions of liters before the water ever reaches those downstream. Meanwhile, upstream dams continue to hold back flow. According to a 2021 report by Human Rights Watch, Turkey's dam operations have at times reduced the Euphrates to a fraction of its historical volume in Syria and Iraq. On the ground, the human toll is devastating. In Syria's Raqqa province, farmer Hassan al-Ahmad, age 54, told Al Jazeera 2022 that his wheat fields, once among the most productive in the region, had failed for 3 consecutive years. "The river used to come to us," he said. "Now we go to the river, and there is nothing." In Iraq's Anbar province, the village of al-Baghdadi has seen its population drop by more than half since 2015. Families who farmed the same land for generations have migrated to cities, seeking work. Those who remain dig ever deeper wells, often hitting only dust. In Basra, Iraq's southern port city, contaminated water supplies have triggered repeated cholera outbreaks. Hospitals report rising cases of waterborne illness, skin infections, and malnutrition among children. According to the International Organization for Migration, over 20,000 Iraqis were displaced by water scarcity in 2022 alone. The World Bank has warned that without significant intervention, the Euphrates Basin faces catastrophic water shortages within 2 decades. For many in the region, the drying Euphrates carries significance beyond climate science and geopolitics. It resonates with deep religious belief. The Bible's book of Revelation contains passages that some believers interpret as prophecy about the river's fate. The 6th angel poured out his bowl on the great river Euphrates, and its water was dried up, to prepare the way for the kings from the east. Revelation 16:12, another passage. Revelation 9:14 speaks of the 4 angels who were bound at the great river Euphrates. For some Christian and Islamic communities, the visible shrinking of this ancient waterway feels like confirmation that prophetic events are unfolding. Pastor Samuel Yohanan, who leads a congregation in Erbil, Iraq, told the BBC in 2023, "Our people have lived by this river for centuries. When we see it disappear, we ask, is this God's hand? Many believe it is." Social media has amplified these interpretations. Videos showing the dried riverbed, exposed ruins, and stranded boats have been viewed millions of times, often paired with scriptural citations. It is worth noting, archaeologists and historians emphasize that the recent discoveries, the Kemune Palace, the Bronze Age pottery, the ancient village foundations, are the result of drought exposing sites normally underwater, not supernatural phenomena. Dr. Hassan Qasim, an archaeologist with the Kurdistan Archaeology Organization, explained to National Geographic, "These sites have always existed. The low water gives us access we normally do not have. It is an opportunity, but also a warning about what is happening to our water." Still, for millions, the intersection of ancient scripture and modern crisis creates a powerful sense of meaning, a belief that the river's fate is tied to something larger than politics or climate. This perspective shapes how communities respond, some with fatalism, others with renewed urgency to act. Scientists and policymakers agree, the Euphrates can still be saved. But the window is closing. International cooperation is essential. Turkey, Syria, and Iraq must negotiate binding water-sharing agreements with clear enforcement mechanisms. Organizations like the United Nations Economic and Social Commission for Western Asia, SXWA, have proposed frameworks, but political tensions, worsened by Syria's civil war and ongoing regional instability, have stalled progress. Agricultural reform is critical. According to the Food and Agriculture Organization, agriculture accounts for over 70% of water use in the Euphrates basin. Much of this is lost to inefficient flood irrigation. Drip irrigation systems, already used successfully in Israel and Jordan, could reduce water use by 30 to 50%. Wetland restoration offers hope. Iraq's southern marshes, once the largest wetland ecosystem in the Middle East, were drained under Saddam Hussein, but have been partially restored since 2003. Healthy wetlands act as natural water storage, filtering and releasing water gradually. Expanding this restoration could buffer against drought. Technology can help enforce agreements. Satellite monitoring through programs like NASA's GRACE and the European Space Agency's Sentinel missions can provide real-time data on water levels and extraction. This data can hold nations accountable and detect treaty violations, but each year of inaction makes recovery harder. Groundwater aquifers, once depleted, can take decades or centuries to recharge. Soil damaged by salt intrusion, a consequence of shrinking irrigation flows, may never fully recover, and the human displacement already underway creates its own cascading crises. Dr. Peter Gleek, co-founder of the Pacific Institute and a leading expert on global water issues, has warned, "The Euphrates is a test case. If we cannot manage this river, one of the most historically significant on Earth, it does not bode well for how we will handle the broader water crises coming this century." The Euphrates is not yet gone, but it is dying. For thousands of years, this river shaped the course of human history. It fed empires, inspired faiths, and carried the dreams of countless generations. Now, it carries a warning. Climate change is not a distant abstraction. Water scarcity is not someone else's problem. The decisions made or avoided in the coming years will determine whether the Euphrates survives into the next century. Millions of lives hang in the balance. Ancient cultures, modern cities, children who have never known a time when the river ran full. If the river that birthed civilization can vanish within a single lifetime, what else can? We stand at the edge of history. One step from preservation, one step from collapse. The choice is ours. Save it or be the last generation to see it flow.